All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the quadratics test or the quiz explanations. Now, with this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to explain every question, starting off with number one. Number one is asking what are the solutions. So whenever you see the word solution always means you have to factor and then use the zero product property. So whenever it says solutions or when it says solve or find the roots, it's always factor is number one. And then use the zero product property, meaning set every variable equal to zero. So let's do that for the first one. For number one, I have x squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Now remember how to do this. You have to find two numbers that multiply together to give you this term, and those same two numbers have to add together to give you negative 2. This only works when your a equals 1 and it's a trinomial where it starts off in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. So the two numbers that multiply together to get negative 24 and add together to get negative 2 are negative 6 and positive 4. Now if you set this equal to 0, x minus 6 equals 0. And then if you set this equal to 0, x minus 4, or x plus 4 equals 0. You're going to add 6 to both sides to get x equals 6 and subtract 4 on both sides to get x equals negative 4. So your two solutions are 6 and negative 4, which is letter choice A. That's for number one. Okay, for number two. Number two is solve using factoring. It's the exact same thing. So we have another quadratic, x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. We have to find two numbers that multiply together to get negative 8, add together to get negative 2, and I think most of you guys got the x minus 4 times x plus 2. And then if I set this equal to 0, I'm going to get x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So this is going to give me a positive 4 and a negative 2. Positive 4 and a negative 2, which is letter choice C. Okay, going on to question number 3. The length of the diagonal of a square. All right, so this is from last unit. Here's a square. Now remember, whenever you have a square, every side is the same and every single angle is the same. And if you have a diagonal, you have a line that goes through one of the angles on the top right and bottom left, or vice versa. But the most important thing is it cuts it into a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle. Now remember with the isosceles right triangle, it's set up two different ways depending on how they give it to you. Both of these sides is the same number, and this is the same number times root 2. Or if they give you your hypotenuse as a number, then it's each one of the legs is half of that number times square root 2. Now it just depends on how the information they give you. They tell you the diagonal of a square is 20. That means this side is 20. This is 20 over 2, which is 10 root 2. That's how long each side is. But we're not done yet. 10 root 2, 10 root 2, 10 root 2, 10 root 2. Now, luckily this answer choice isn't there because I think a lot of people would have put that answer. How many 10 root 2's are there? There's 40 of the root 2's, which is going to give you letter choice A. That was number 3. Now, number 4, solve using factoring. Okay, so for number 4, we have 3x squared plus 5x minus 12 equals 0. Now, a lot of people might have tried to factor this, but if you can't figure out how to factor it, you could always use something called the quadratic equation or the quadratic formula. And that is x equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2 times a. Whenever you cannot factor it, you can always plug it into this. So I have x equals negative, my b is 5, plus and minus the square root of b squared, so 5 squared is 25, minus parentheses 4 times my a times my c, all divided by 2 times my a. Now here is everything in there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going. X equals negative 5 plus and minus 25. Now I'm going to do this real quick. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times negative 12 is negative 144. Now check this out. Negative 144, 25 minus a negative 24 becomes plus. See these two minus signs? They become a plus 144 all over 6. All right, so I'm going to have x equals negative 5 plus and minus the square root of, if I add 25 to this, I'm going to get 169. And the square root of 169 is 13. All over 6, so I'm going to have x equals negative 5 plus and minus 13 all over 6, which is going to break down into 2 terms. I'm going to have negative 5 plus 13 over 6 and negative 5 minus 13 over 6. Negative 5 plus 13 over 6 is going to be 8 over 6, which is a positive 4/3. And negative 5 and negative 3 is negative 18 over 6, which is a negative 3. 4/3 and a negative 3, which is letter choice D. That was number 4. Okay, continuing on. We got number 5. Number 5. This is a right triangle trig question. So sine, cosine, or tangent. From 53, you're given your adjacent side and your hypotenuse. So it's going to be cosine 53 over 1 equals my adjacent, which is b over 12 cross multiply 12 times cosine 53 is my answer. When you do this, I forgot, let me just do this on my calculator. 12 times cosine 53, make sure it is in degrees, and it's going to be 7.2, which is A. That is number 5. Number 6. First off, for number 6, you have to move everything to one side of the equal sign. So I'm going to have x squared. I'm going to move that 3x over, and I'm going to move that 54 over. Now, two numbers that multiply together to get negative 54, add together to get negative 3 is x and a negative 9, and an x plus 6. Zero product property is going to give me a positive 9 and a negative 6, positive 9, and a negative 6, which is letter choice D. Okay, for number 7, here is my right triangle, and this is the ladder that's leaned up against the wall. It's a 10 feet ladder, and the base of the ladder is 4 feet away from the wall. A 10 feet ladder leans up against a wall, so the base of the ladder is 4 feet. How high up on the wall will the ladder go to the nearest foot? Okay. So this is going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Basic right triangle. 4 squared plus x squared equals 10 squared. So it's going to be 16 plus x squared equals 100. And I'm going to subtract 16, so I'm going to get x squared equals 84. And then I'm going to square root both sides. So the square root of 84 is going to give me 9.1. So about 9 feet. That's number 7. Number 8. All right, this is a difference of squares. You just have to factor this. This is going to be, you square root the left and the right side. 3y plus 4. The square root of 9y squared is 3y. The square root of 16 is 4. One's a positive, one's a negative. 3y plus 4, 3y minus 4, which is going to give me letter choice C. That's number 8. Number 9. Number 9, I'm going to do the quadratic equation. And once I have it in the quadratic equation, I'm just going to plug everything into my calculator. So I'm going to have x equals negative b, which is a negative 1, plus and minus the square root of b squared, negative 1 squared is 1, minus parenthesis 4 times my a times my c, all divided by 2 times my a. Here's my big long formula, but let's simplify this. I'm going to get x equals, these two are going to become a positive 1, plus and minus. Let's get an actual number in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug everything into my calculator. I'm going to say 1 minus parenthesis 4 times 42 times negative 30 in the parenthesis, and then I'm going to square root that answer, and I'm going to get 71. 1 plus and minus 71 all over 2 times 42 is 84. So one of the answers is going to be 71 plus 71, which is 72 over 84. And the other one's going to be 1 minus 71, which is going to be negative 70 over 84. That was number 9. Number 10. Oh, and the answer choices, these are reduced. They don't have 72 or 84, they just reduce it. Number 10. Okay, for number 10, I can factor out an x from both terms, giving me x plus 2. If I set this equal to 0, I'm already solved. If I set x plus 2 equals to 0, I'm going to get negative 2. So I have two answers, 0 and negative 2, which is D. Number 11, we're almost done. Write as a product of two factors, two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 40, add together to give me 3. So my two numbers that multiply together to get negative 40, add together to get 3. It looks like it's going to be a positive 8 and a negative 5. 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. 8 minus 5 is 3. So x plus 8, x minus 5, which is letter choice A. Okay, that was number 11. We got 4 more questions. So this isn't too bad. It's just kind of repetition of some of the questions. Let's go number 12. We have to solve for x. All right, no problem. I got to get the y all by itself. So I have 3x squared. I'm going to leave the negative 2x, and I'm going to subtract 5 to get y. Now whenever I'm trying to solve, I factor it. But in order to factor it, I have to set this equal to 0. My y is always set equal to 0. This is not factor. I mean, we can't factor it, but it's easier to use a quadratic formula. So I'm going to say x equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared, so negative 2 squared is 4, minus, parenthesis, 4 times my a times my c. All divided by 2 times your a. I'm just going to do a couple steps ahead. All right, so let's do this. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. 4 minus a negative 60 is the square root of 64, which is equal to 8. So I'm going to have x equals negative 2 becomes 2, plus and minus 8 over 6. And then I'm going to get 10 over 6, and then I'm going to get negative 6 over 6. So I'm going to get 5/3, and I'm going to get negative 1. Let's see. 5/3 and negative 1, which is letter choice C. Okay, that's 12. For number 13, cosine of angle B is this angle, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. 8 over 17, that is the cosine. 8 over 17, which is letter choice C. All right, 2 more questions. Number 14. Here is my triangle. This is the angle, so it's going to be the inverse of sine, cosine, or tangent. This is the opposite in hypotenuse. So I'm going to do inverse sine 5 over 15, or 1/3. You don't need to reduce it because you got your calculator. So on my calculator, remember I'm going to go second sine to get inverse 5 divided by 15 and press equals. You're going to get 19.47 degrees, which is going to be, 19.47, which is going to be about 19, which is D. And the very last question, number 15. Factor x squared plus 14x plus 8. 2 plus 48. Two numbers that multiply together to get 48, add together to get 14. Well, it kind of rhymes. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 8 is 48, and 6 plus 8 is 14, which is letter choice